Welcome to Excel tips and tip number 20. This tip we're going to be looking at VLOOKUP formulas and common errors with VLOOKUP formulas. VLOOKUP is one of my favorite formulas. It's a very functional formula, and if you don't know how to use it, this is something that you should probably pick up on how to use, because it can be very powerful. Essentially, the VLOOKUP formula will look up, say for example, on the data set out, we want to look up Queensland. It will look up Queensland in this column and then return results from future columns. Very similar to HLOOKUP, which we may touch on in a future tip. So one of the problems with VLOOKUP formulas is column offset. So the VLOOKUP formula, as you can see here, is set between the lookup value, so C12, which is Queensland, C11, sorry, which is Queensland, the table array, which in this case is the states, votes and candidates, the column index. Now this is how many columns from the first column it's going to look out to get a result, and then also the range lookup, which you should be setting to false, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in this tutorial. So columns 1, 2, 3, you can see it's going to pick up candidates here, and that's the formula that we're looking at. So appears to be collecting the correct data. Now this is actually traditionally how majority of people will write their VLOOKUPs, especially when you first get into it, and it actually works fine. The problem with this is if the source data changes, which you can see here. So we've got exactly the same formula down below, where you can see, let me get rid of the circle, when you can see it's looking up Queensland, it's still got the table, but what's happened is we've inserted the population column. And because of that, the hard-coded number 3 is now, instead of looking up candidates, which it should, is now looking up population. You can see Queensland, 3 million, and we're getting 3 million here, rather than the candidate number of 8. So how do we combat this? And it's using the match function. And this is something which I strongly recommend to anybody who's using VLOOKUPs, is use the match function. And you can see here, the difference is we've inserted, instead of 3, don't mind the spaces, it's just formatting so you can see the formula better, but we've inserted match. And from match, you'll see we're matching B45, which is candidates, along the header row, and we want an exact match, and that's why it's type 0. To prove that this works, I'll just quickly insert a column, shift cells right, and you'll see this automatically changes from what it would have been, which is 3, so now it's 4. I'll just show you it as 3 because I didn't show you that before. Delete, shift cells left. And now if I highlight this and press F9 to calculate, it says 3. So that's just showing you how the power of match can actually make your VLOOKUP a lot more robust and secure as far as using it. Another common problem, and we've got a number of different examples here in relation to using the VLOOKUP, is not using false and not sorting. So for example, we're looking up in this formula here December 10 in the area below and getting column 2. Now we haven't put false on the end, and as a result, you can see with the comment here, there are 2 instances in this column of December the 10th. So we could easily miss the fact that there's 2 dates in there, and it's only going to grab the first instance that it finds. So theoretically, you could be coming up with the wrong data. So VLOOKUP's only great when it is a unique reference that it's looking for. Conversely, December the 9th. December the 9th actually doesn't exist, but because the dates aren't sorted, we're not easily going to pick up the fact that December the 9th doesn't appear. Whereas, what it does is it says, right, well, there's no December the 9th, so we're going to get the earliest date in the formula because we haven't got a false and it doesn't exist. So instead, it is grabbing 24th of September, which is that value there, 227. So that's the first set of problems. Now we move on to the second one. So December the 10th again, same data, but now this time we've sorted the data. So this time we can quickly see that there are multiple tenths, and it's now grabbing the last 10th value in there. So it's grabbing 57, but we can see that there's multiple values, and this may indeed be the wrong value. We've now sorted the data, so the 9th of December is no longer looking up for the 24th of September. It's saying, well, what is the closest date to the 9th of December? and as we go down, you'll see it's the 8th of November, because it always looks backwards, it doesn't look forwards. So it's 738. Now, data sorted and using false. So 10th of December. So this time we've sorted and we've used false. And you'll see in this instance it's going to grab the 1st December, the 10th, to 458. So again, it's not ideal having multiple data, but you can just see how it works differently between data sorted and data sorted with false. And then finally, the correct answer for December 9th, we've used sorted data and we've also put false in. You could probably do this without sorting the data and still have false. You prefer to have sorted data, but it comes up with a hash NA because false is saying it must have the correct number or date in the range to be able to return the sales data for it, and as a result it doesn't have it, and we've come up with a hash NA. And as discussed in a previous tutorial, to get around the hash NA, you could use a if brackets is error, and then it will test if that's an error, put in a 0 if it's not, or perform the VLOOKUP. And in 2007-2010, which we're focusing on, you can actually use if error, and then just have the VLOOKUP, comma 0, or whatever you want it to happen if it's a false result. So that's some common mistakes that we have with VLOOKUP formulas. I do suggest you get in and try VLOOKUPs. They're a fantastic little tool, and if you have any issues, feel free to drop us a line.